Well, thank you very much for the introduction, and it's a real pleasure to be here today sharing with you some of the work that we're doing at Edinburgh University. And it's really interesting to follow on from some of the messaging from Hilda and Christoph, because what we're looking to do here is really have an emphasis upon a safe student-facing chatbot. And I hope through the presentation you might see some of the work we're doing towards achieving that. So what I'm hoping to cover in the next 20 minutes or so, introduce you to the University of Edinburgh and EDINA. I'm the interim director of EDINA. I'd like to describe a little bit about our existing EdHelp service at the university and the student wellbeing service that the university runs. I'd like to describe what we're doing with our chatbot, our EdChat chatbot, and describe a little about our use of OpenAI's API in delivering that chatbot. I'm going to describe the internal expertise we have at the university that enables us to address some of the areas around safe delivery of this type of technology, and I'll touch upon our future plans as well. So a few facts about Edinburgh University, and again, welcome to those who are arriving in the city for the first time. A very historical institution founded in 1583, and it is one of the world's top 25 universities, depending upon which ranking you consider. And we're certainly a lead AI institution in Europe, and certainly one of the top leading AI institutions in the world. And Professor Helen Hastie will be speaking tomorrow, our head of School of Informatics. And the university has a significant annual turnover, over £1 billion. And we have, a really large student cohort, 45,000 students, 16,000 staff. And importantly, 35% of our income come from student fees. Our students are our customers, and it's really important that they're happy and that they have a positive experience at the university. And there are important questions students ask when they arrive, especially accessing IT, how do I pay my fees, accommodation, library services. And it's those areas that we're looking to assist delivery of accurate information to the students. I'd like to say a little bit about EDINA. I'm interim director of EDINA, and it is relevant to setting the scene for this service. So we are a directorate within the Information Services Group, so we sit on the professional services side of the University of Edinburgh. We're not academics. But at EDINA, we do have over 20 years of expertise in delivering cloud services, and I'm joined here in the room by a number of my colleagues from EDINA. Importantly, we develop online services within Edinburgh University, and then we sell them to other universities. And we do that generally via subscription models. We have a large customer base. We have over 200 higher and further education institutions accessing our services. And we're also now delivering services to over 5,000 primary and secondary schools in Great Britain and also in Europe. And we have a growing expertise in AI and LLMs. What I'd like to do now is just describe the existing current EdHelp service at the university that another directorate within ISG, our colleagues in the User Services Directorate, deliver. It's called EdHelp. And EdHelp delivers library and IT services, student finance and administration. So help in all of these areas for students. Their knowledge base, they have about 500 separate knowledge items, and students currently interact with those knowledge items through a number of ways. They can search across FAQs, they can fill in forms and submit the form, and they can, when available, live chat with operators, but the live chat is limited to when operators are available. In the last 6-month period, we have a statistic there of around about 41,000 queries. Obviously, this ebbs and flows across the university semester time. So, it's not a constant cycle of queries. And the EdHelp service has around 60 staff, 50 of whom will be responding to queries, 10 are more management. And we do employ students to help us on the EdHelp service. I said I would mention our student wellbeing service because that's really important in terms of how we're bringing in a chatbot to assist with student queries on EdHelp. The student wellbeing service at Edinburgh University is a very established university service, and it's there to proactively foster a student support environment. Importantly, staff on our EdHelp service are trained in an escalation route to the wellbeing service. There's a PDF guide, tips upon language, whether it's students are repeatedly coming back. It's a very useful guide and flowchart for staff on our EdHelp service to identify if students are needing real intervention and needing help. And the guide is there to help really assess distress levels of students. And importantly, the urgency of help needed. We do have an escalation route which our staff may well phone 999, may phone for services. We do have staff who will go out and visit students at home as well. It's a very well-established escalation route. So coming back to EdHelp, the business need, Christoph, comes from a business need for a chatbot. There is a desire to have a service, a self-service, which is not 100% reliant upon humans, and really to increase the number of self-service resolutions at first line with a virtual assistant. We've put a metric against that, something like a 20% deflection rate from help desk staff. And we're very much looking for a chat-like experience to replicate the experience that students are having in many other walks of life. Multilingual is important for us. Edinburgh University has something like 44% of its student cohort are overseas and multilingual, so that's important for us as well. Most importantly, we're looking to develop something which integrates with our existing processes, so our call management system and also our human student wellbeing service. So very, very briefly, and I've got colleagues in the room who can answer more technical questions, what we have built is a web-based user interface which sits behind university authentication. It's SAML authentication. We know the UUN of every student coming to access the service. We've uploaded our EdHelp knowledge items into a vector database. We're using OpenAI's GPT 4.0 large language model to give us our conversational experience. And I should say that we've written our own prompt to interact with the large language model. Again, thinking of some of the things that Christoph was highlighting there, the tone that we have in our prompt. We've told, in our prompt we say, never talk formally, don't joke, have a fairly casual tone, and you are a member of the EdHelp service. And we're tweaking that prompt as this is being tested by our existing EdHelp staff in terms of how we have responses coming back to the students. And importantly, we're integrating with our university service desk. It's a system called UniDesk, created by TopDesk, a Dutch company. It's fairly commonly used across universities in the UK. We also have system integration with Microsoft Teams. We're pushing some messaging into Teams, but actually we've tweaked that a little in response to feedback from our EdHelp team that actually they want email alerts coming into a specific mail list rather than a Teams channel. So, but we can do both. So in terms of our use of OpenAI's API, we are using 3 of the available endpoints in this solution: the chat, embedding, and moderation endpoints. I've put on screen there some of the, there are 11 categories in the moderation endpoint. And it really is very interesting when we looked at those 11 categories against our student wellbeing service guide in how one assesses whether intervention is needed with the student. There's some alignment around those categories. We have also, working with AI, negotiated a zero data retention amendment to our API use. The small print from OpenAI says we will hold your data for 30 days while we decide, and if we really want to hold on to it, we will. But we've negotiated a zero data retention amendment, which means no holding of any of our queries. So with our chatbot on screen, we're working on the UI, we've got the functionality working, but we're making a lot of changes to icons, etc. But the key things are that the chatbot is using OpenAI's embedding endpoint. It really is locked down to only respond from the local knowledge base. And we're using the moderation violation, and if the violation is flagged, then the chat with the student ends. However, we provide them a message, and that message depends upon the moderation violation category. So if the detection is rude or abusive behaviour, we remind the student of the University of Edinburgh computing regulations and acceptable use. If the moderation violation is suggesting harassment or fear from the student, we point them to some of the student wellbeing help there. If the category is elevated to self-harm, suicide, we have an immediate referral to a mail list by staffed individuals, and it's the same escalation route to our student wellbeing service that we would have had previously. Again, we're tweaking that, we're looking at how that's working, and we'll certainly be monitoring that when the service goes live. So chats are pushed currently to a dedicated email list where the violation occurs, and also a particular specific service desk category, which we can then review. All chats are stored in our service desk system. The user can, when the option is available, they can ask for a live chat, and they'll be pushed to a human operator. We have the ability to automatically update manually the knowledge items. If a user feels there's something in the knowledge database which is wrong, they can manually, through an admin interface, update it, or we have a nightly update, extracting data from our service desk, from the stored chats, re-enhancing the local knowledge base. Touching a little upon our internal expertise. So at EDINA, we have been delivering cloud-based services to the education sector for over 20 years. So we are very familiar with the need for data protection impact assessments to be carried out. We're very fortunate at the University of Edinburgh to have a data protection officer who provides us with a really comprehensive template to work through in terms of assessing data protection. And flowing from that, we have a privacy statement and a retention policy. Also, as part of due diligence, we carry out an equality impact assessment. And flowing from that, because it is an online service, we have a digital accessibility statement, making sure that the service and the web front end is as accessible as it can be across browsers, devices, and different screens. But probably more importantly than those two items are the fact that we have our own internal information services group, ethics approval group, and we will be taking our finalised policy and regulation statements and escalation route to the approval group. But also at the university level, we really are, extremely fortunate to have an AI and Data Ethics Advisory Board who is chaired by a leading professor of AI. And we've had a number of sessions with that group describing the work we're undertaking, responding to their concerns, and there is an ongoing dialogue with that board, but we really are very fortunate to be able to work with them and seek their expert input. So my final slide really is to say that we will be going live some point after Easter. We're currently testing the service with EdHelp staff, and we will be testing the service with students as well before we fully go live. We're tweaking our prompt, we're tweaking some of the other ways that we're pushing data into our service desk. Most importantly, once we've gone live, and this again fantastically echoes the sentiment from Christoph and the question online, really we won't know until we start to analyse the chats. We don't know what's going to happen until we look at how students really interact with the service. We have a very simple rating option in the UI, thumbs up, thumbs down. We'll be looking at that. Importantly, we're going to be using machine learning techniques to analyse the chats that we've got stored in our service desk. And most importantly, we're going to look at the moderation violations, and we're going to understand what changes we may need to make and how we respond to those. And from an EDINA perspective, an organisation who create services on scale, production services, we have already delivered an architecture where we can provide multiple chatbots within the university. It's fair to say we've already had a number of other parts of the university say, oh, could I have a chatbot, please? One example would be a course selector. At Edinburgh University, a student coming to the university can really pick from a wide array of subjects to make quite a personalised experience. The course selector would just be a fantastic way to deliver information and allow the student to really query a little bit further than some of the high-level information that they can currently find about courses. Admissions as well. The admissions area of the university is one that might benefit from a chatbot. And there are multiple other internal needs. One future plan that we do have is to seriously consider replacing OpenAI's LLM with an open LLM that we would host and run on our own infrastructure. I didn't say at the beginning, but the University of Edinburgh, it's aligned to Sustainable Development Goals. Its 2030 strategy vision is to very much reduce its carbon footprint. And one could say, well, introducing a service which is using OpenAI's large language model is really not quite in sync with the university aligning with Sustainable Development Goals. So we are looking at the options of using one of the leading open LLMs, if it can provide as good as a conversational experience, as good as moderation options and integrations as well. So that's something that our technical colleagues are currently looking at. And again, from an EDINA perspective, if we do this successfully internally, and we've yet to see how that pans out, if we do it successfully, then we will be adding it to our portfolio of services that we make available to other institutions. We have the credibility, we are of the sector, we understand the concerns and the need to ensure that these things are done safely with students. So very finally, thank you very much. I need to also thank our colleagues from the Bayes Centre. They are the reason I'm able to be here today to join you speaking. Please visit Stand 2, the Bayes Centre, the University's Innovation Hub for AI and Data Science. Charlotta and Isabel are on the stand. And also to highlight that the wonderful Professor Helen Hastie is speaking tomorrow. Our head of School of Informatics at the Edinburgh from the university is speaking at 9 a.m. tomorrow, so please come along for Helen's excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think that was a great talk. And I do believe, before we go to the questions, we have some nice questions from the audience. Let me just say, I do believe this is a great use case again for AI. Why? It's like also the things you hinted at the end, right? It looks to me like you're creating some kind of a digital buddy that is just with the student like all along the journey, right? And this is something you just cannot do with the human beings that are employed at university. You would love to, maybe, right? You would love to be there for every single student for all the questions, but it's just you cannot do that at scale.
Yeah.
But now you can think about the things that you would love to do. If you can multiply yourself into 1,000 pieces, but it's not possible. But this is a great use case of AI. And I think if you think about that, again, if you transfer that to the enterprise sector, this is a case that you should think about in terms of HR applications. It might be again a great case for do you want to be with a future employee from the start, from the application process, throughout the whole process, because your HR department is just not big enough to be personally there for every single employee, for every question, right? And that's a great use of using the scalability options that AI offers. So Thank you very much. Really, really great talk.
And I think, Christoph, also is the fact that some of the questions are very repeatable.
Yeah.
How do I change my VPN password? How do I pay my fees? Some of those can be dealt with really accurately and immediately through the bot. And it's about freeing up the helpline staff to deal with the queries which require a little bit more going back and forth.
Thank you. I think we have some great questions, Caroline, right?
Yeah.
Which are looking also at what possible other use cases you might be considering in the future, some of the questions, I think.
Yeah, so lots of interaction online, and we won't be able to get to all of them, but I'll quickly mention some. So thank you to Monica Schnattler. She's kind of reflected on some of what you were discussing about the other internal needs. So she's asking, are there any plans to replace lecturers at the university with bots? And is there plans also perhaps to look at bots for helping with creating the lectures and verifying content, I guess. Is that another thing that's being considered?
So I'm not on the academic side of the university, but I would my instinctive response to that is no, in terms of replacing lecturers with bots delivering content. We do have a very effective lecture recording service at the University of Edinburgh, where lecturers have to opt out of that recording service. But I would hesitate to see, in terms of the experience for the student and the value, I think the lecture still needs to be there. But it's an ever-changing environment. So.
I think what she was also going at with the second part of the question is again a question of scalability. So a professor has a lecture, and the lecture needs to be done by the professor. Maybe the professor has research assistants, teaching assistants that can take care of taking a certain amount of questions, right?
Yeah.
But then there's a certain amount of questions that happen at any point of the day, over the whole time. And I think her question was going in the will you have basically an added-on assistant that basically takes care of students while they cannot talk to the professor and while they cannot talk to the teaching assistants. I think that was also where the question was a little bit going.
Yes, and at a one can see the value, if the lecturer is prepared to provide their expertise or content in a way that it could be accessed by such an infrastructure. That could be seen as a value add, but the experience of a university, and being, with a lecturer and in a tutorial with other students talking together, I think is one that's paramount to the education experience.
Thank you.
Okay, so I was hoping we could squeeze in another question, but looking at the time available, I think we'll have to hand over to the next speaker. Thank you so much, Anne, for your questions. And if anyone does have questions, then they're out on the exhibition space.